Hey, what's up, Zach here, and today I've got the all-new K-Swiss Ultrashot 4, and from the 3s to the 4s, it's like a different line of shoes. Let's get into them. And thanks to K-Swiss for sending me a pair of these to check out. However, this video is by no means sponsored, and all opinions, as always, good, bad, and indifferent, are all my own. All right, so starting off in the uppers, this is what I think polyurethane and mesh really should be doing. It does not have to be uncomfortable. It does not have to be super bulky to accomplish the goals it's trying to accomplish. I think the Ultrashot 4 just does a phenomenal job. Number one, you get quite a bit of, it's almost like a delta pattern of polyurethane that goes from the forefoot and it kind of swings out kind of into the lateral side where it kind of looks like a traditional Ultrashot shoe, and then into the medial side. But you do get TPU mesh underneath of that. And honestly, that TPU mesh almost feels like malleable plastic. It's got some memory to it. It's got some spring to it. Feels unreal on foot. Feels like just super, I guess luxurious would be the word. It just feels awesome. And to me, that's one of the biggest feats of this shoe, is having a lot of polyurethane in the uppers, you know, a lot of drag protection, but not the discomfort. You look at this thing on the upper durability test, 10 seconds highest grit sandpaper. I mean, basically the burr just cleans it off. I mean, I actually did it on the inner side as well as the outer side, and really not really any damage. So in terms of dragging or sliding, I guess you could start to catch some of these edges and some of this TPU weave underneath of it, but you know, you got so much outsole tread that rides up over it. Is it really gonna matter? Probably not. Look at this thing on the breathability test though. It did heat up 106.4 degrees. I think the fact that there's just so much material on that polyurethane, some of it's gonna hold on to some heat, right? At some point, having all this drag guard in the uppers, it's gonna hold on to some heat. Although, look at the breathability mapping, fog's blowing out of this thing pretty darn good. The tongue on these things is the only thing I feel like doesn't match the rest of the shoe. There's some padding up top, but the rest of it's pretty thin padding. Not uncomfortable by any means. It's got a nice strong gusset to it, but it's not super chunky like the rest. The forefoot has that really chunky, super porous padding. So I mean, it breathes really well, got nice moisture egress, but also padded and comfortable. And then the rear foot, the ankle collar is padded up pretty good, but then the heel counter goes up pretty high. So heel slippage on these, really mild to none. There's no runner's knot in these things. I kind of wish there would have been just a runner's knot, because that really would have kind of kicked it up into the stratosphere to me. All the lace eyelets are reinforced, and those reinforcement wings go pretty far down into the uppers of the shoe. So really strong tie down, but also just incredibly comfortable uppers. I mean, for what these are, the comfort these bring is crazy. I can just imagine Francis Tiafoe goes from the Nike GP Challenge 1, which one of my biggest complaints about them was the discomfort in the forefoot of them, and you know, in the banging with your toes and everything. They're just kind of stiff shoes, to these, which are like the most comfortable and some of the best feeling there. It just had to have been quite the eye opener. So yeah, in terms of uppers, really, really nice. But getting into the midsole teardown, you look in the rear foot, you will see something new. Actually, K-Swiss sent me the entire component of the rear foot. This is this shock frame, right? Now what this is it's a very thin piece of TPU that's got a little bit of a halo underneath of your heel, and then on the bottom is the really thick piece of TPU. But it creates a lot of stability in the rear foot of the shoe, and it makes it really rigid in the rear foot. So not a lot of toggling, but your foot doesn't feel it. So there's air in between you and this like kind of harder TPU plate. It's just soft TPU under your foot. What that does is it feels a lot like the Onyx Ad Excel in the midfoot shank. It just feels like whenever you hit the rear foot of the shoe, like it definitely wants to bounce back, give you a lot of energy return, which is really nice for, you know, because the shoe is a little bit heavier. Now this also has Surge 7.0 going throughout the entire shoe. Just super comfortable, pillowy foam. Look at it on the bounce height test. Got 31 centimeters in the rear foot, which for K-Swiss is actually pretty high in the bounce height test, and then comes back down to earth at 29 in the forefoot. And really, I think it's that shock system. What's it called? The shock frame. I think it's really that. It's that little bit of extra kick in the rear foot that's giving it a little bit more on the bounce height test. But I noticed is in the rear foot, you do get that halo or the shock frame, whatever they want to call it. And then you also get that chassis that comes around the shoe, right? It goes around the heel to create that external heel counter, and then into the forefoot. But in the forefoot, you also get a carbon fiber leaflet on the lateral side. And what I noticed is when the shoe, you know, when the shoe's working together, when everything is kind of moving, you're taking full strides, it's like one part of the shoe kicks in, then the other part takes over, and the other part takes over. It really activates when you put a lot into it. The more energy you put into the shoe, the more it's gonna give back. And that combined with the really super comfortable uppers, yeah, it's a heavy shoe. You can't get around it. It's a heavier shoe. But for what it gives back to you, I feel like I would take that trade any day. But getting into the outsole tread, just different levels of modified herringbone on the medial side. You get some pretty flat herringbone. It's chunky on the lateral side, a more linear pattern, some razor, some herringbone. You know, it's a little more, like I said, more chunky pattern. You do get a little bit of a sliding channel here in the forefoot, then the rear foot is pretty much all flat tread, more that chunky flat herringbone. These things didn't slip on the grip test ramp until 38 degrees, and it's actually harder rubber than some of the other K-Swiss shoes. So look at this thing on the outsole durability test, 10 seconds highest grit sandpaper. I mean, the burr just cleans it off. So, you know, in terms of durability, they're good for sliding. They'll grip and grab if you want, they'll slide if you want. It's a nice tweener shoe for really any kind of footwork you want to put into these things. They'll kind of give back to you. A nice little sliding channel there in the forefoot as well. And in terms of the speed ratio, they only come in at a 1.81, shank score of 0.2, brings it up to a 2.01. And although they feel faster than that a little bit, you can't get around the fact that they are pretty heavy shoes. But the more, like I said, same in the midsole, the more you give them, the more they give back. So they are fast if you have a lot of energy to put into them. Whatever you put into these, it's gonna get back. And so, like I said, I would take that trade-off. Like, honestly, I mean, I could easily see these being like my personal shoe. And yeah, like I said, you do feel the weight. And if your legs are tired, if your legs are weak, you're gonna feel that weight more. But like I said, if you give them enough, they're gonna give you enough back. If you don't put a lot of energy into them, that's when they're gonna start feeling heavier and heavier and heavier. All right, but getting into the fit of the Ultrashot 4, these do have a 14-degree inflare, so that they are inflaring a decent amount. And then they do come in at 28.8 centimeters in length, 9.7 centimeters metatarsal width, 10.6 of toe box width, and then a toe box taper, only 24 degrees. So you can see where they're trying to get a little more streamlined with the inflare, because the taper and the widths are actually really, really mellow. There's a ton of room up there. I'd say if you're a narrow foot, as long as you're not super long-toed, I'd go down a half size in these things, get the weight reduction. You know, and if you're super short, you know, if your foot's pretty short and narrow, go down a size. Get that weight reduction, they're gonna feel a whole lot better for you. A medium, I'd say, as long as you're not long, I'd go down a half size, get the weight reduction, 2E, go true to size, 4E, go true to size. I just wouldn't wanna be going up sizes in these, because I think it'd be a little bit too much shoe. In terms of the snake bitten foot, I'd say besides shin splints, because they're a little bit heavy, these are one of the best ones on the market, just for most lumps, bumps, and bruises. The way the rear foot offloads the heel, kind of like I said, the Onyx Ad XL with how the shank offloads the heel, the shank's in the midfoot. These ones offload it in the rear foot itself, but it feels awesome. And it's just, it's like, I know I call it a halo because of what it is, but it kind of feels like a halo around, you know, it kind of feels like a donut pad around your heel. It feels awesome. In terms of ankle sprainers, you got that little, you know, piece of carbon fiber right there and just enough of a clip flange here. And that TPU bar on the outside does have a little bit of a clip to it as well. So it's got enough protection for ankle sprainers for sure. And then just the foam setup in general on these things with kind of the, you know, exterior support structure with all that super supportive foam underneath of it. Just feels great. And if you put an orthotic in these, which they'll accept just fine, really takes it up a notch. So for most things, like I said, besides anything in terms of leg weakness, things like that, they're absolutely fantastic. And in terms of the performance, the Ultrashot 4s, yeah, I mean, if you want a super rugged shoe that also feels like pretty luxurious, pretty nice, pretty plush underfoot, this is it. I can see why Tiafoe's wearing them. I mean, he's got phenomenal footwork and he's a strong dude. And so to extract the most out of these, you have to be a pretty strong player, gotta have pretty strong footwork. But you know, I know I had myself in these. I felt great in them. One day I was playing in them, I was doing a lot of shoes the same day, just kind of trying to get, you know, a little more footage out of every shoe. And I noticed, like, I was wearing these toward the end and my legs were feeling a little bit tired because I was on court for like an hour and a half, 2 hours at that point already. And that's when I could feel the weight in these things. That was really the only time I felt the weight. My dad absolutely loved these things. In terms of pickleball, we both thought they were one of the better ones on the market because you didn't feel the weight as much. You were more pivoting right, moving around, and the stability of that rear foot, that clip flange, and the forefoot, just, you know, everything just really worked really well. Like I said, as long as you're putting energy into them, they're giving a lot back. Just for side-to-side movement on the baseline, they felt so good. Getting up to net, like trying to get low for balls, like I didn't feel like I was pummeling into the ground. They gave me a lot of support. I think that's the key to these things. It's support. It's comfortable, rugged support. And I think if that's what you want, these things you're gonna just buy them in spades, I think. Like I said, you gotta be the right player for them, and like I said, even if you just want a shoe just for comfort, right? Like you don't care about super performance or any of that, you just want like a super comfortable shoe. This is one of the better ones in the market. So yeah, in terms of me, I think clear step up from the threes. The threes were okay, but to me, they were just okay. These ones are kind of more in that upper echelon for me, for sure, for tennis as well as pickleball. So I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments down below. And if you want to see the other brand new K-Swiss shoe that just came out, another just absolutely world-beating tennis, pickleball, and outdoor basketball shoe, the Hypercourt Pinnacle going to the knife, make sure you click into this video up above and subscribe down below. Respect your Foam. I'll see you somewhere in the sneakerverse.